Hi everybody, this is TJR. Back when I was playing live all the time, one night this woman came up to me during a break and she started to ask me about a brand of guitar that was being advertised on TV in an infomercial. This guitar was selling for under $100. I think it was like $96, $99, something like that. And they were saying that this guitar was comparable to anything that was costing like $1,000, or some outrageous claim like that. And she asked me what I thought of these guitars. And I told her, well, I've seen these ads on TV, these infomercials, but I have not tried the guitar personally. But to be honest, I honestly don't see how you can make a guitar for around $100 that could possibly be any good, that could possibly have any lasting value. It's probably made out of very cheap materials. It's probably very cheaply put together. And I can't imagine it lasting you very long. But once again, I had never tried it. And over the years, people have asked me, what's the difference really between an expensive guitar that you say spend $1,000 to $2,000 for versus a cheap guitar that you spend maybe $100 or $200 for? What's really the difference? What are you really paying for? Is it just a brand name? The answer, I think, is somewhat nuanced, but to a certain extent, somewhat obvious. I'm going to tell you a little story here about a musician that I knew, still know him to this day. In fact, he's a very good guitarist. And when he first started, he bought a cheap, inexpensive guitar that was under $200. I think it was $199. He practiced on it every single day, and I'm not kidding. I mean, every day he practiced and he played on this guitar. He even took it to work with him. He practiced on his lunches and breaks. I think after about a year or so, that $200 guitar was starting to fall apart on him. He was actually using duct tape to keep some of it together. So he said to himself, well, I bought this cheap guitar because I wanted to find out if I was really serious about playing. And I guess I'm really serious about it. So now I'm going to go out and buy an expensive guitar. And he spent, I'm going to say probably somewhere between $1,000 to $1,500 on a really nice Taylor acoustic guitar. And he still has that guitar to this day. Now, the first lesson that you could take away from this is that a high-quality guitar that you spend more money on is going to be made with better quality materials, better quality wood. The craftsmanship is going to be a lot better. The binding that holds the guitar together is going to be stronger and more long-lasting. But there are other things to consider as well. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of back-to-back comparisons. Now, first of all, this is my Taylor T5, and a guitar like this retails probably somewhere between $1,500 to $2,000. I've owned this for quite a while now, and this guitar has been on hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of gigs. I do give it its annual maintenance every year, get it set up regularly. I do my best to keep it clean. The first thing that I think about it is that, now this, and I should mention here, this guitar is an acoustic electric hybrid. You can plug it into an electric guitar amp. It will sound great as an electric guitar. You have a pickup selector for that to switch it over to electric. You can switch it over to acoustic, plug it into a PA system or an acoustic amp, and it will sound like an acoustic guitar. It has semi-hollow body. It has this F-hole design here, so even when I play it unplugged, you can hear it a lot better than a straight-up electric guitar because there is some sound coming out of these F-holes. Not as loud as a full-on, like a Dreadnought acoustic guitar by the same maker where there's a large sound hole. Not quite to that level, but it's not designed for that. This is designed to be plugged in. But many things about it, I will say, is like, for instance, the tuning pegs, the quality of these, how quickly do they fall out of tune versus a cheap guitar, where the tuning pegs are much cheaper, not made as well, and they fall out of tune easier. I would sometimes tune this guitar at the beginning of maybe a cover gig where I'm playing maybe 3 45-minute sets. And by and large, it would hold its tune, throughout the entire set. In between sets, I'd check tuning again, and by and large, it stayed pretty much in tune. Maybe there'd just be maybe some minor fluctuations, but not a whole lot. You know, this, of course, guitar has electronics, so there's also the level of the electronics, how well those are put together. Another thing, of course, is the finish on the guitar. The finish protects the guitar, and how good is the finish? The ease of changing the strings. How well is it designed as far as changing the strings? This guitar has a battery in the back. How easy is that to deal with? Do they make it difficult? Do they make it hard? They really don't. It's a very quick and easy little flip top here for the battery. But also, how does it play in your hands? You know, are the strings, is it really a lot of effort to hold those strings down, or is it just like nothing? You know, I find this guitar to be very easy to play as far as, you know, maneuverability. Hear the sustain? You know, the sustain we're hearing, even though it's not plugged into anything, we're hearing quite a really nice sustain. You know, plugged in, of course, we're going to get a whole lot more. There's that. Sometimes on a cheaper guitar, you can try it. The sustain gives out quicker. Also, it's harder to bend the strings, harder to hold them down sometimes. There are a lot of, you know, things like this. So now let's take a moment here, and we're going to look at a cheaper guitar. Okay, one moment here while I switch guitars. Right here we have a Recording King Dirty 30s acoustic guitar. This guitar generally sells on Musician's Friend for about $179. It was a deal of the day when I purchased it for $99. So I purchased this for 99 bucks. Admittedly, it has a very nice look for a cheap guitar, and it looks pretty good hanging up on your wall, which it hangs up on my living room wall. I bought this guitar deliberately as a cheap guitar because I wanted to experiment with open G tunings. And I made a video talking about why I did this. I didn't want to have to keep retuning my other guitars every time I wanted to experiment with open G tunings. I just wanted to have one guitar set for it, so I just bought a really cheap guitar to do it. It has a nice look to it too as well. But one of the first things I'll talk about, while it does look nice, the strings were incredibly rough to change. The strings kept falling through these holes as I kept trying to put them in. The ball ends kept falling through. It was like a real pain trying to get them in there and get it strung up. Tuning it can be a bear too. It doesn't hold its tune very well. I should say it doesn't hold its tune anywhere near as well as the other guitar I just showed you, or more expensive guitars will hold their tunes much better. The finish here, there's no high gloss finish. It's just a simple matte finish. So it's not terribly well protected, to be honest. As far as, you know, its playability, I would not recommend this guitar for a beginner even. I would recommend something a little bit more expensive because I think it would give a beginner some issues. The action isn't too bad, you know. And it has you can hear the sound of it. I don't think it sounds anywhere near as good as the guitar I just played. It has kind of a funky sound to it, but it could be, I wouldn't perform with this live because it just wouldn't be that reliable live at a long gig. I might record with it just to get that kind of funky, kind of retro, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, lo-fi sound. Also, as far as, you know, like the strings, when I try to bend them, you hear a lot of pinging going on there. And the strings don't bend very well, although I should, of course, say this guitar is not made for bending strings, really. But if this were a more expensive guitar from a higher-end manufacturer, I would have a lot more ease. Also, just even like, you know, and well, like I said, this guitar is not made for hammer-on pull-offs. There it wasn't too bad, but here, a lot harder to get some sustain. I'd have an easier time with my other guitar just doing that. Once again, I realize this guitar is probably not made for that, but today, you know, even playing acoustically, a more modern guitarist is going to want to do little acoustic tricks while they're playing, you know, they're going to want to do things like that. And, you know, so there's ease of use. When I look at the tuning pegs here, they are a lot cheaper. They're not as strong. Like I said, this guitar does not hold its tune as well. But then I didn't expect it to. I didn't expect this guitar to be a marvel. I just wanted a cheap guitar that I could put in open G tuning and just experiment with whenever I feel like it. But I would not recommend this to a beginner here because I think you just need a somewhat better guitar to get started with. Sometimes with cheap guitars, the action is really high off the neck, and that makes it a lot harder to press the strings down. I'll admit this one is pretty well designed as far as the action. It's not too bad. But now we're going to switch over now to a guitar that is more of kind of a mid-range guitar, and we're going to take a look at that here in a moment here. So let me switch guitars out. Okay, so now right now I'm holding on to a Taylor GS Mini. Now this is what we call a parlor guitar. It's a little bit smaller than the standard guitar. It's made more as a traveling guitar. But you know, one thing this has in common with the guitar I just showed you is that guitar was a parlor guitar too. It is smaller in size than the average acoustic guitar. And so here's how this guitar sounds. There you go. It puts out a very good sound. Even though it's a smaller guitar with the sound hole, it does put out a very good sound. Puts out a lot of sound for the size, I should say. This guitar here by Taylor, yeah, I think it's about somewhere between $399 to $499, somewhere in that range here. This is a very good value for the money, I feel. Taylor, of course, makes very high-end acoustic guitars that you can get much more expensive than this. But you'll see the binding, not quite the same level of binding that we saw in the other Taylor here, but still very well constructed. You can adapt this guitar to electronics. You can install a pickup here if you want to be able to plug it in. Small headstock, but once again, very nice tuning pegs. It holds its tune really well. I would play this at gigs. You know, I could play, if I had to do a completely solo acoustic gig with no other instrument, I could do the whole gig with this if it was like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. I can bend the strings on this. We got some sustain going there. Plugged in, it's going to give me even more. So once again, construction, playability, you know, the ease of use when you play it, how well it stays in tune, and how long is it going to last you. These are all things that determine the difference between a cheap guitar and an expensive guitar. And a while back recently, I did see this video where this guy compared a $200 guitar with a $2,000 guitar. They were both the same style of guitar, of acoustic guitar. He had them set up with the same style of, brand of strings. He also had them, set up, in other words, maintenance, had the guitar set up professionally prior to doing the test. And all he did was he played something on the expensive guitar, then he played something on the inexpensive guitar, played the exact same thing. And what I got from this video was that this guy plays really well. And if you play really well, you can take a cheaper guitar and you can sound good playing it because you are playing well. But I think the real thing is how much easier is it to play on the more expensive guitar? How long is that guitar going to last you if you're using it all the time, if you're always performing, with that guitar? How long is it going to be durable? How will it last you a lifetime, or will it fall apart, as it did with my friend who bought the $200 guitar? But now, once again, that's another thing. There's nothing wrong with buying an inexpensive guitar to learn with. I wouldn't go as cheap as $100, though. I think you're really doing yourself a disservice. Now, with all that said, there are sometimes nuances that no one can count on. And I'm going to explain that to you right now as soon as I switch guitars. Here we go. Okay, so I'm back, and now I'm holding on to a Charvel solid body electric guitar that I purchased, decades ago. I've had this guitar for a long time. I purchased this guitar for about under $200 in the recycler. I think I paid about $175 for it. This guitar is not a great sounding guitar. I did improve its sound by replacing the bridge and net pickups with what was stock with some Seymour Duncan Classics, which definitely helped improve it. Right now I've got some Elixir strings on it, which have a very good tone to them. It's not plugged in, so we're hearing it unplugged. It's certainly not going to produce a huge sound because there's not plugged into anything. It's made to be plugged in. There's no sound hole like there was with the last guitar. But you can still hear it, and it is made to have the strings bend. It's made for that. And of course you plug it in, it's going to, you're going to hear it a lot better. The thing about this guitar, like I said, it wasn't a great sounding guitar. I did improve the sound by changing the pickups and putting quality strings on it, having it professionally set up by a professional. But the thing about this guitar here, this is one of the nicest necks I've ever played. I mean, I swear, even like my Taylor T5, which is, like I said, I think somewhere between $1,500, $2,000 guitar, just the playability. It just plays so easy on my hands. And I have had other guitarists, try this out, and they've all said the same thing. This is the nicest neck I've ever played. Just your fingers can just glide on it, holding down chords, tremendously easy. They've all said it's very easy to play. It doesn't put up a whole lot of resistance. They've also said this is an incredibly nice neck. It feels good on the hands. You don't feel like you're struggling as much as you do with other guitars, just holding down bar chords for a long period of time. It's just a lot easier on the hands. And I think I just lucked out. I think I just lucked out with this one inexpensive electric guitar, solid body guitar, where it just had this amazing neck. It's just kind of one of those 1 in a million flukes, in my opinion. And I just got lucky. And this can happen sometimes with an inexpensive instrument. And that's why I've never let this instrument go, because I have never, even playing, high-end expensive guitars, found a neck that felt this good. I have played other really nice guitars, and I've kind of resigned myself to the fact that I'm probably never going to find another guitar with a neck this good. And that is why I've just held on to it for all of my life, and I probably will hold on to it for the rest of my life. But I want to stress that this is the exception and not the rule. By and large, with guitars and with a lot of things that you buy in life that are, considered expensive, you get what you pay for. We are getting better and better all the time at making quality products less expensive, and guitars are no exception. But by and large, if you buy a high-end guitar from a well-known, reputable brand like Taylor, Gibson, or Fender, you're going to get a good quality instrument that, if you take care of it properly, will last you a lifetime, and you can even pass down to your children. Versus buying a cheap guitar, which it could fall apart on you if you really start playing it continuously all the time after a period of time. And all the well-known manufacturers also make less expensive entry-level guitars. Gibson makes the Epiphones, which start at around $200. Fender makes the Squire, which also starts at around $200. And even Taylor, which is known primarily for high-end acoustic guitars, has the new Academy series, which, unlike the parlor guitar I showed you, is a full-size acoustic guitar that starts at around $499, $599 if you want electronics. And so there are a lot of good options out there if you're getting started with the guitar. But by and large, yeah, you're going to get what you pay for. Buying a less expensive guitar is advisable if you're just getting started and you want to just see how serious you are about the instrument. And also if you just are planning on, even if you're going to keep, be very dedicated to the instrument, if you're just playing for fun and enjoyment and maybe occasionally playing with your friends or, occasional like open mic here and there, buying a high-end guitar, I only advise that if you are planning on really going pro and you're going to be playing all the time, night after night after night, maybe 3 to 4 nights a week, maybe even more, month after month after month. That's, when you really want to be seriously considering a very high-end instrument. Anyways, this is TJR. I hope this video was helpful for you. And any comments you have about what I've said, any stories you want to share if you've, play guitar, any other thoughts you want to add, is there anything I might have left out, anything I should discuss in a future video? And anyways, though, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I'm looking forward to checking out your comments.